All right, welcome back to the Buffalo Plus podcast presented by BuffaloPlus.com. Mike Catalana, Dan Fetes. I am Jenna Cottrell. We are breaking down the Bills' bad, ugly, horrible loss to the Titans, 42-16. A lot to work on, a lot to reflect on after this game. Mike, what is your biggest takeaway after the Bills in their loss in Nashville?
That it was a team effort. I mean, they lost in every phase. Special teams.
Thereof.
Yeah, they turned it over. The offense turned it over. The defense could stop no one. Sometimes there's a group to blame, a player to blame, a kicker misses, something happens. You want to blame the referees, like all those things. Come on. This game was a blowout, and the Titans controlled it basically from that Tannehill touchdown before half on, and it got ugly in the second half. The Bills looked physically beaten. They looked mentally whipped in this game. And you just have to hope it's one of those bad nights that they can put aside.
Yeah, out-muscled, out-physicaled, out-coached. I mean, top to bottom. The Titans were the more creative team on offense. They were the tougher-nosed team on defense. It was about as uncharacteristic as we have seen. This was the fourth most points Sean McDermott has allowed since coming to Buffalo at his teams. It was a complete beatdown from start to finish, and it was, you can call it uncharacteristic. It was, some of these defensive issues have kind of been, leading up. There have been kind of whispers of it and things leading up to this, but this was just a complete, lack of not showing up is really what it seemed like for me watching this game.
And I feel like we do have to talk about the defense, considering, a couple weeks ago it was, hey, we had an uncharacteristic. We gave up, 28, and then we gave up 32, and then 42. And look, we know Matt Milano was out. We know Trey White didn't play as well. Levi Wallace not playing. But Mike, I mean, this is to the point where we talked about it. There's the panic button was out. And as Dan said on our Buffalo Plus page earlier, like the panic button is about to be hit.
Well, a good example of how bad it was to me was when the Bills scored to make it, 28-16. And then there was that idea that McDermott went for 2, which I know analytics people love it, whatever it is. They didn't get it. They were still down 12. So they needed 2 touchdowns. Okay, you needed 2 scores or 2 touchdowns. Fine, whatever that is. One way or the other, you needed the ball back. And you were in the game. It was 12 points with 8 minutes to go in the game, something like that, 7.5. And the Titans got the ball and walked down the field. I mean, that told me a lot. In a moment where you could have seen the Titans maybe back off and the Bills make a play and they convert on a third down or stop the conversion, they didn't do that. They got run over. And the Titans walked down the field and scored. Then they fumbled the kickoff and gave them another one. But that was the one to me, Jenna, that showed this defense was physically beaten up in the game. And we've seen that in stretches before. Fitz threw it around on them, but the Rams beat them up physically and ran all over them. And the Raiders had moments of that, but the offense had done enough in those games to hide it. There was no hiding it tonight. That defense was awful, and they got tortured tonight.
It was undisciplined, sloppy, poor tackling. I mean, Dan, these are obviously things that can be fixed, but at this point, we're now heading into week 6 against the Chiefs. Like, what do you make of those mistakes that are being made? Because this is not happening just one week. It's been multiple weeks in a row now.
Yeah, we haven't had these discussions about this kind of an uncharacteristic, undisciplined, out-physicaled game by the Bills and Sean McDermott since about week 4 of last season when Josh got knocked out against the Patriots. This was the first time that we're sitting here really laying into a team that just didn't show up. There are times when the Bills have lost and they've been close games or whatnot. This was a game that didn't look like a playoff contending team. This was one of those games where you hope to just kind of flush it and forget about it. Sean McDermott said that he wishes the flight home would be 6 hours so that he could watch all of the film of all 3 phases. I'm in the camp of just don't even watch this game. Forget about it. Go back to watching the last 4 weeks where you played good football and that you know what kind of a team you were, because you're now going to have to get yourself back up to host the defending Super Bowl champs in Kansas City. And it's tough because you can go through every single quarter, every single drive and say, that false start was awful. That pass interference was terrible. That play call didn't work. Like everything that went wrong, the Bills kicked, shot themselves in the foot, and they just didn't help themselves at any point.
All right. So I'm asking you guys this. When we've seen them have issues on defense in the past, Sean McDermott pulled the plug very briefly on Leslie Frazier. Now, not for a second am I blaming Leslie Frazier as why the defense is playing poorly. But sometimes if you need a jolt, you need a change. Do you think McDermott possibly becomes a little more hands-on with the defense? And look, every game is important to him, but
yeah,
it's Andy Reid coming in.
Yeah.
No,
it's his guy. It's Leslie Frazier's guy too. I mean, they both worked for him, but it's McDermott's guy coming in.
Yeah.
It's his defense against Andy Reid's offense. Like, I think he's going to be more hands-on this week.
Well, Mike, it was interesting because at practice on Wednesday of last week, I was watching the linebackers, and Sean McDermott was the one like taking linebackers and physically moving them around, and he was going through the drills with them. And like it was the most hands-on I had ever seen Sean McDermott in the last like 2 years. Like,
so maybe it was his fault then.
Maybe that's the problem. Maybe now he needs to just focus, hang out with Josh Allen for the week and just not be around the defense, because that was one of the things I noted watching practice and just going like, he is really into all these linebackers. He's really focusing on them. Again, more issues with Tremaine Edmonds, more issues, with coverage. It was ugly again on all sides.
We have to talk about the pass rush too, or lack thereof. I was just say, or lack thereof. I mean, Dan, I felt like Ryan Tannehill had all the time to make whatever play he wanted. And he was the one, not so much Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry had a pretty nice game, but Ryan Tannehill was the one who was moving the ball at will.
And they tried to bring pressure a couple of times. It just never got there. And what's scary is obviously the Bills were without their top two corners in Levi Wallace and Trey White, obviously. But you know what can make a pass defense better? Getting a rush. Yeah. Tannehill it all day. It doesn't matter. Even Trey White can't guard an NFL wide receiver for 7 seconds. There needs to be pressure. The few times that they did get it, once or twice, Jerry Hughes and Quentin Jefferson had one of them. Mario Addison knocked one ball down at the line. They were able to get off the field, but Tannehill was able to move around, and he's not a mobile guy by any means. You saw when he almost tore his ACL walking into the end zone. Like, there are issues here. And like I said, you need more out of Jerry Hughes. You need more out of somebody, because there was no pass rush, like you said, whatsoever.
Well, there was an attempt at it once when A.J. Epinesa jumped into the neutral zone, and there was the quick shot of McDermott on the sidelines. He was like, get him out. I think that was as much.
What was his name? Penza?
Whatever.
No, Ebenezer.
There it is.
Yeah, it's Tom McCarthy was doing the game with Jay Feely. Look, that's great, guys. It was not exactly a normal primetime broadcast.
Tuesday night football.
Yeah. Hey, look, I've had 2 experiences with Tuesday night football. This disaster of a game, and a decade ago, my Eagles getting roasted by Joe Webb and the Vikings when they were 14-point favorites on a Tuesday. So if I never see another Tuesday night NFL game, I'll be happy. But we got Monday night. We got Monday night happy hour game coming up.
I like the happy hour vibe.
Yeah,
I know, 5:00. That's pretty nice. Mike, you did mention though the penalties.
Yeah,
one on Epinesa, 10 total penalties. Just so I feel like the team was just flustered the whole night.
And look at the type of penalties that they were. I mean, Josh Norman got a couple of pass interference ones. One he deserved, one was close.
Yeah.
The rest of them, false starts, illegal motion.
Tyler Kroft.
Tyler Kroft was great. The one time it was Stephon Diggs moved a fraction before Tyler Kroft moved. And the referee called it 14 illegal motion. And then Kroft is like, you know what? That was mine. Because on the very next play, he moved too soon, and then he got his own penalty. And defensively, neutral zone. How about the penalty for the late hit on Tannehill, which was huge, gave him a first down. They would have gotten out of that drive with a field goal.
The one with the camera all the way to the top of the
CBS showed a replay from the Mars rover looking down on the stadium.
Outrageous.
But like we said, wasn't the greatest broadcast. But then again, and the Bills weren't the greatest team out there. Yeah.
But what not bothers me, but I can imagine for Bills fans, like the Bills have been playing well. Yeah. They have. Their defense has had its struggles. But the national narrative is now, whoa, this team is nowhere near what we thought. Like, I don't want to say people are going to say, are the Bills frauds? But I think people are definitely going to talk about how, wow, we overlooked, like we totally overestimated Buffalo.
As we're recording this, the national shows are getting ready for tomorrow. They got it Wednesday to talk about an NFL game. They'll talk about Le'Veon Bell a lot getting cut by the Jets, but they'll talk about this game. And then they'll make this narrative. Are the Titans for real or are the Bills a fraud? That's what they're going to talk about. Yes, it's going to come up. And Josh Allen, did the old Josh Allen come back? And look, he wasn't great, but he wasn't terrible either. On the Bills list of problems tonight, Allen was probably 6th. Yeah.
How many issues are we going to talk about? There's a lot.
By the way, the other thing that we really didn't address in that case was, and we went on the defense a little bit, is this team doesn't run the ball very well with the running backs.
Well, I was going to get to the offense, but yeah.
Yeah. And that becomes a problem that they're not, and I like Devin Singletary. He makes a few nice moves. Doesn't appear to be a lot of room, but they're having a tough time just basically running the ball and doing it effectively. And tonight was another one of those cases. Now, I know they got behind and all, but Dan, I don't think they can depend on the running game.
No, and I don't think they have been for quite some time. We talked about their offense coming into the 21st century. I think that they're going to put the ball in Josh's hand. They need the wide receivers. I think they really miss John Brown. Again, we're not going to make excuses here, but I wasn't crazy about some of the decision-making by Josh Allen, and I'm not an all-22 guy. I'm not going to say that. But Josh Allen attempted 21 passes in the first half, and none of them were to Cole Beasley. And I thought that was something that could keep drives going.
That was surprising.
Yeah.
Especially without John Brown. I thought he was the go-to guy. Gabe Davis made a couple of really nice plays. Obviously, the one was called back on a phantom illegal shift. We didn't really, again, another quality replay that we didn't get. But I just didn't see them. Like, this is not a team that is going to rely on the run. I think it's complementary more than it is.
But is it even complementary right now?
No, it's not. It looks, and this could have been the night to get it going. And I thought this offense a lot of times too was going to be this amoeba that would morph into whatever the opposing defense. This was the 31st ranked rushing defense.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get anything going. And then Josh seemed to force things. He even said that early in the third quarter, he got greedy on his second interception. It was a bad decision compounded by a horrible throw. And that was really the back-breaking play there. So,
In all of Josh's, he hasn't made a lot of big mistakes. He threw the crazy pass against the Rams that was intercepted. That wasn't really an interception. Yeah. And he threw into coverage a few times over these 4 games, but he hasn't made just an atrocious throw like that one. And he knew it was bad, but it wasn't just bad. I mean, when he made that throw against the Rams, the Bills were ahead by 3 touchdowns. When he made this throw, they're down 21-10, but they are moving the ball in the third quarter.
Yeah.
Could have changed the game. He even talked about it. He should have just thrown it out, and instead he tried to get the ball in there, and it was a play. Everybody knows who that was. It's Malcolm Butler, the guy who made the interception on Russell Wilson in the Super Bowl, who is a very good player. But, I mean, the ball was thrown right into his hands, and I think the team sort of faded there. And Butler's return epitomized the game for me.
Oh, my gosh.
Cole Beasley made an effort, looked like he had him. Everybody else stopped. Mm-hmm. And then Butler nearly took it the distance for a touchdown. That was an embarrassing effort play by the players at that point. And you usually don't see that out of the Bills. They make mistakes, but it's not effort. That was effort on that play.
And what was surprising to me too, and like I said, you see it with other teams around the league. Like I said, I'm not going to sit here and crucify the Bills defense and say they're awful, because like there's defenses around the league are struggling. This isn't just a Buffalo thing. Okay. It's obviously Bills fans are used to having dominant defense with bad offense. Well, it's kind of changed a little bit, but what was surprising to me was that this Bills offense has come out of the gates firing so many times, and they've gotten leads. They've had leads in going into halftime. This was the first time they didn't have it. Now, that's not to say the Bills haven't had comebacks. They have in the fourth quarter, but they've been much smaller. They've been 3 points or 4 points.
Yeah.
Like, this was the first time that they were really behind, and they seemed to, I don't want to say panic, but they just seemed to get away from what they've done. Josh tried to go for bigger plays instead of, taking first downs and marching down the field. Like, especially after that opening drive where they turned the ball over, but then they went 15 plays. They went 75 yards. But it never really felt like the offense really got going, right, Mike?
Yeah, but you're right. And you look at it, when we talk about complementary football, that worked in reverse here, because Allen threw the interception. Then no one made the tackle. And then on third down, they get a penalty that keeps the drive alive. And then the Titans score a touchdown. And then from that point on, it was warm up the bus. We're headed home. And it really was. It was bad from that point on. They never really got back in it. They scored the one touchdown, but the Titans took over the game. So, no, it was very disappointing. But, you know, the Titans are 4-0 now. I mean, they are a good team. That team was, close to the Super Bowl last year, right? This is a good football team. But you already took the Marv Levy line of, depth is a great thing until you need to use it. There's another famous NFL line that says, in the NFL, you're either humbled or about to be humbled. And so for all these teams that I see winning, and it's great, like the Titans are all jacked up now. Tyler Lewan's walking off the field. Like they were accused of things and criticized for things that they actually did and nearly cost the NFL and made everybody work around them. They played great tonight. They deserved the win. They deserve to brag about how they played. But you got picked on as Titans because you guys were stupid and you caused a lot of problems for the league. And the league had to bail you out and the Bills had to change their schedule. But no excuses to how they played. They played great. But stop with that number. So what I'm saying is they're feeling really good about themselves, 4-0. I don't know if it'll happen next week or the week after, but the Titans are going to get humbled too, because that's what happens in this league.
Well, the Bills certainly got humbled. We know the Chiefs also got humbled if they lost to the Raiders. How does Buffalo move on, Dan, now when they do face the Super Bowl reigning champs?
I think you need to get your confidence back up. This was a team that was having a lot of fun, that was flying around the field with energy. There was no energy this week. And part of it was, like I said, Josh Allen said it best. They got punched in the mouth. They didn't respond how they were supposed to, whether that was Josh Allen, like he kind of put it all on his shoulders, but it was universally. There was no play that got the Bills sidelined into it. There was no play that got the, as they famously call, there was no juice. I think you need to go back. I wouldn't even watch this tape. I've said that earlier in the podcast. Don't watch the tape, burn it, forget it, and just start focusing on the Chiefs.
Yeah, that seems very Sean McDermott-like. Let's think of this, Jenna. Here's the difference between Dan talks about the juice. Josh Norman last week brought it in Vegas, makes the play, strips the ball off the tight end Waller, and then has the ball. And then today gets launched into the air by Derrick Henry, who said the problem is he's been doing too many curls. I mean,
that's so tough.
First of all, for Josh Norman, I got to say this. You're going against A.J. Brown, and then you're trying to make tackles against Derrick Henry. Yeah. Like, not great matchups. But I'm sorry, that's the NFL. That's the world they live in. And they miss Trey White a ton out there. And by the way, to dispel the whole Trey White's not playing because of COVID, he was out on the field warming up, trying to get ready, and they decided to hold him out. If that was the case, he wouldn't have even been in Nashville. So we can relax on that too.
Where do you think, how does Buffalo's confidence level, where is it at right now?
It took a hit, but I think this is still a confident team. I still think they believe they're good. Okay. I mean, all they got to do is look at the tape of the Chiefs from this week, and they're going to see the Super Bowl champs giving up big play after big play and not responding against Kansas City. Yes, that game was more back and forth than this one was, but they got handled in that game. The Raiders were better than the Chiefs in that game. So it can happen to anybody. And I think the Bills are still a confident team, but they got to get off to a good start on Monday afternoon when they play against Kansas City.
The Chiefs almost got outplayed for most of the games by the Chargers, and then they almost lost to Brian Hoyer and Jarrett Stidham with the Patriots. Look, the Chiefs are a very good team, very dangerous offense.
But you saw what they did against the Ravens.
Yes, absolutely. This is an offense that can flip a switch. There's no question about that. But I'm having deja vu last year to when the Bills were 3-0 and all of the hype was around when the Patriots were coming to town, and that was it. And then the Bills laid an absolute egg, and Josh Allen got his concussion, and then it was like the sky was falling. And I just remember going into the locker room and asking Lee Smith, and he goes, "We're still 3-1. Like we're a good team. The Bills are still 4-1. The sky isn't falling. They're not below 500. They're a 4-1 team that got humbled." Mike, I think that's the best point. It should be the name of this podcast. The Bills got humbled.
I will say this though, that what Jenna referenced before for Bills fans, the national guys are going to start bailing on you. And if you lose on Monday, they'll bail on you again and say, the Bills are improved, but they're not one of those teams. So be ready for that. That's why that's an important game. The difference is you can play really well against the Chiefs and lose. So that's a tough game coming up. It would be nice to have the Jets.
Back the underdog mantra.
There we go.
I think they
love it. They thrive. It just is so, I feel like so frustrating for so many Bills fans because there's been so much to believe in. And then to have one game where everyone watches and gets to make their cheap jokes. Yeah. That Josh Norman video will live forever, Mike.
I think he's still flying in the air.
Josh Norman is an all-pro. He was an all-pro. And this is the thing on his Wikipedia. That's what he will always be known as, is the guy that got decleated and thrown like a rag doll by Derrick Henry.
It was both awesome and awful at the same time.
Dan and I
said in unison, "Oh no!"
That's what Josh Norman was saying too. He was saying,
But give Josh Norman credit. A play or two later, Henry came around the edge at 6'11", 800 pounds that he is, and Josh Norman stuck his head right into the chest and made a tackle, and then woofed back at him, which I thought was great. Now, it doesn't make up for flying in the air.
Yeah.
But it shows you that Josh Norman is a competitor. He had a rough night tonight. He did. He'll come back and make plays. He knows the way this league works, but that play sort of epitomized the night for the Bills.
Well, the Bills turning the page. I'm sure they're ready to turn it on.
I believe they used the term flush this game.
Flush it. Is that,
They did, right?
I did. It's just so funny. Flush the game. Micah Hyde also added post game that this game does not define them, which I think is a great point and speaks to what you guys were saying that we've been talking about. Mike, we have something special coming up on Thursday. You want to give people a little tidbit of what's going on?
So we have a full hour. Let's Talk Football live on Fox Rochester from 7 to 7:30, just on television. We'll sort of wrap this game up and get you ready for that Chiefs game, which we know doesn't come up until Monday. We're supposed to be on Thursday. And then we continue Let's Talk Football live on the YouTube channel and also on Facebook Live, 7:30 to 8. We'll interact with you, ask any questions back and forth. We have a lot of fun with that. So that's Thursday on TV, 7 to 7:30, and on Facebook and YouTube, 7:30 to 8.
All right, perfect. Make sure to subscribe and like our content if you would. Also comment. We love the comments. We love reading them. For Dan Fetes and Mike Catalana, I'm Jenna Cottrell. We'll catch you next week.